The English Language Center at the University of Bahrain is delighted to feature a special address from Dr. Paul Robertson and Dr. Ramon Mariano Jr. with Asian EFL Journal, the publisher of the papers presented during this exciting webinar. Dr. Paul will give a brief introduction into the behind-the-scenes editorial processes that all submissions go through before being rejected or accepted for full review and potential publication. In particular, he will focus on how a paper is certain to go to full review. Dr. Ramon aims to orient potential authors with techniques about how to reduce the length of a thesis or dissertation manuscript to suit the requirements set forth by the publication company without losing the essence of the research, as well as to give guidance to the Bahrain University Conference participants who may wish to submit a paper for publication. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Paul Robertson, who founded the Asian EFL Journal Academic Group in 1997. It has grown from the original Asian EFL Journal to include 5 other SLA research journals and 1 law journal. It is also an honor to introduce Dr. Ramon Medriano Jr., who is the training manager and sales executive of TESOL Asia. He is an editor of the following journals: Asian EFL Journal, International Journal on the Rule of Law, and the Modern Journal of Studies in English Language Teaching and Literature. While we are waiting for Dr. Paul to join us, I would just like to mention to the attendees that all of the presentations will be recorded, and you will have access to the recordings at the end of the webinar conference. Also, while we are giving the presentation, if you would like to ask questions or if you'd like to make comments in the chat box, please feel welcome to do so. And we will be having a short break after this session, so we'll give you more information about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize at the moment. Dr. Paul City is having a power outage, so I'll do the talking at the moment. So once the power's back, then he can join us.
Welcome to join us. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramon. And so, attendees, let us welcome Dr. Ramon Medriano Jr. And sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Before, I got hesitations of being called doctor because they say that being a doctor should be like, you need not to be very young. But at my age, and a doctor, yes, then it's just right to be called a doctor. Thank you. So I am Ramon Medriano Jr. Now I'm the academic and publication manager of TESOL Asia, and now the chief editor of TESOL International Journal, a quartile to Scopus Index journal. So let me talk about Scopus Index journal publication, because most of the presenters in this conference would want to have their papers published in a Scopus Index journal in the future. But why? Why do they need to have their papers published? There are actually 5 reasons for academic publication. For some academics, they just want their papers to be presented in an international conference. But take note, there are actually reasons why we need to have these presentations published in a journal. One reason is it contributes to a current body of knowledge in a particular area. For example, linguistics. Who knows, maybe your research is an addition to that body of knowledge in your area. So how would they know that it can add up to the body of knowledge? All you have to do is have it published so that everyone in that area, or all academics in that area, will be able to see your contribution, will be able to see your research. Second, contribution to policy making. A lot of our policymakers actually need researchers for them to formulate like policies, for us to have like better understanding of problems in education, in politics, and in other areas. And how would they know that there are actually problems in those areas? Because they actually check on researches of academics. And where are these researches from? From published researches. Third one is it recognizes your credential or it recognizes your credibility as an academic. So you've been teaching for some time, like 10 or 15 years. So how would we know that you are actually very good at what you do? Yes, a part of your teaching prowess or teaching competence, you also need to check on your competence as a contributor to the body of knowledge in your area of expertise. So in order for your credibility to be recognized, well, you have to publish your contribution or you have to publish your study. Now, the fourth one is it comes with career advancement. In most of the universities now, they require academics to have their papers published or to have Scopus Index or Web of Science publication, like 3 or 4 in a year, in order for them to sustain their being professors or to sustain whatever academic ranks they have. And that is already a requirement. In the Philippines, they require us like 2 publications per year so we can still retain our professorship. And the fifth one is actually under Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It boosts self-esteem. So if you see yourself, or if you see a published work in a Scopus Index journals, and you're actually checking citations of your work, if your work is being cited, it means it's contributing something to the body of knowledge. If it's being cited by other researchers, it means there is actually relevance or your study is impactful. Now, let's go to the next slide. So publication, what's in it for me, you might ask. So first one, it's a proof of academic excellence. Second, it's an avenue for more academic collaborations because now, if you are only doing it in your university, you might as well want to expand the reach of that research by collaborating with other universities who may need to have that result of the same study. Okay. Source of academic pride. If you happen to see your name in Scopus and your study being cited, that's actually a source of academic pride. Financial gain, especially those who are getting money from the government out of their researches. Now, academic and research credibility, I've already explained that earlier, and then academic and research impact. More citations, the more impact your study has. Now, next. There are actually 2 ways on how to have your papers published. We go with a fast way or we go with a slow way. For rapid publication, look at this photo. For rapid publication, there are a lot of academics who wants rapid publication because it's fast. They can actually have their papers published in as fast as like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And for some, they want to wait and then they just want to do the slow process. But what are actually the differences of the slow and rapid process? So for article publication, we have the fast track publication. For fast track, it's fast. Yes, but most likely these papers are actually replications of previous papers. When we say replications of previous papers, my experience working in publication and my experience working as an editor for 10 years, I've seen papers that are replications of old papers and they don't contribute anything to the current body of knowledge. So it's just like you're recycling something and that recycled research has nothing to do with what we need now. And for fast track researches, most likely they are plagiarized because it needs a lot of time and patience before you can actually write something that is really publishable. Now, for the regular publication, that's slow. Why? because most likely it's novel, because it's new. When it's something new, it's really difficult to get literatures. Yes, previous researches, because it's actually new. And then especially if it's an original work, it's really difficult to cite people or cite theories who used the same kind of study, or a study who used the same theory. Now, let's move on. For our company, we actually handle 5 Scopus Index journals, and these are actually the journals where you can have your papers published. Okay, the Asian EFL Journal, the Asian ESP Journal, and the TESOL International Journal. These 3 journals are now quartile 2 journals. They're Q2 journals, and their citation index are high in the area of linguistics, language education. We also have the Journal of English as an International Language. This is actually one of our new journals, and it's quartile 4. And we have the Linguistics Journal. It's pure linguistics journal. It doesn't have any Q rank at the moment, but it's Scopus Index. So all of these journals are Scopus Index journals, so you don't need to worry. Next. Our online visitors, we have online visitors 417,000 in just this year. Total visits for all the journals, we had like 3,075,234 visits. Submissions received this year, we received 8,690. Total submission is 47,000. And how many of these submissions received were actually published? At the moment, we were able to publish 120 papers. Why? Because it's not really easy to get your papers published. So I think I'll give the floor for 5 minutes to Dr. Paul, since he's already here. So Dr. Paul, before I'll continue my discussion, I'll give you the 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mon. Can you hear me okay? Because we just had a massive power failure.
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm living on an island in the Pacific, and I think lightning just hit us, and down we went right at the welcome time. Sorry about that. I just want to say congratulations to Bahrain University, the Language Center, for putting on a wonderful conference again, another annual conference. It's great. Sorry, I've got a 3-year-old in the background who's having a tantrum just to make life easy. Mon's given you some statistics. As you know, the pandemic struck, and the pandemic has given academics a lot of time to write. They're home, as you know, and in the last 3 or 4 months, we've been inundated with a lot of wonderful submissions, and therein lies the dilemma. We can't publish everything, as much as we want to. We would really like to, but we have limitations, and it does mean we reject very good work, and that's the sad story. Indeed, that's how the journal started back in 1999. The Asian EFL Journal started when my paper, which I thought was very good, was rejected by an American university. So I decided to open my own journal, and that's how the Asian EFL Journal group started. I published myself, but that's a story long gone. There are a lot of journals out there. I think I've counted about 50 in our field, but at the same time, there are also, a lot of them are getting inundated with submissions. All I can say is keep trying, don't give up. Find something which hasn't been written about. Find a gap, find the gap in previous research. Distinguish other research. Don't write about something which has been written about before, because you're telling us the known knowns. Refer to it, but try and find the gap or find a fault in the methodology, etc. And where does your research fit into the global picture? That's how you're going to get published, finding the gap. And there are a lot of gaps to be found in the research. I'll just finish on a very brief point. When the power knocked out, I was going to say the the last couple of ladies, I noticed they said the world is changing drastically. And I think for sure it is, in the next 10 years, this decade is going to be the biggest drastic change in our profession that we've ever seen. And I think we've got a lot of work to do to stay ahead of changes. And in particular, let me just say that I do believe by 2030, AI, we've just come through a pandemic, we've survived that and we're moving on. I think the next huge challenge is going to be AI. And I've seen some incredible AI in Shanghai with Jack Ma, who's building an AI army of teachers. So I think we talk about, this conference is about employability. It's not only for the students, and this is the teacher's job, how do we make them employable, etc., ESP, etc., etc. I'm also worried about the profession. There's many millions of teachers in the profession. There's the academics, maybe 1 million, 3 or 4 million teachers who are teaching English. And then the TESOL army, the TESOL teachers who are not necessarily licensed teachers. There's about 1 million of those across the world. Here in the Philippines, probably 300,000 or 400,000. And I do worry a little bit about the future in AI, which to me means we're going to have to seriously look at training. And that's where I want to concentrate the next few years. Anyway, that's what I have to say. Good luck with your publishing, and I really hope you can get published. Mon, would you like to take over? Time is short.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. So let me just finish my slides. So top 10 countries visiting our journals. So we have Indonesia, Philippines, the United States, Malaysia, Thailand, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Japan, Turkey, and China. And then reasons actually for paper rejection. So why do we reject papers? First, submission not within journal scope, because some people or some academics, they don't read the scope of the journal, they just submit. So first thing is, before you submit your paper, read the scope of the journal first. The second reason is overgeneralization of findings from a small case. Sometimes, like people, academics, they have like 5 respondents, but they generalize it as if it's actually a very big research. It's truism. So it's a lie. So we reject those papers. Third one, outdated literature index. So read current researches, because if you're still inundated with outdated literature, your knowledge is outdated. Fourth one, lack of methodological knowledge. Yes, because a strong research needs to have a strong methodology. Key findings not linked to literature. So if you keep on putting garbage literature in your research, we will also reject that. And when it adds nothing to the new knowledge, or when it adds nothing new to knowledge, we will reject. And if your paper is plagiarized, we'll definitely reject. Now, question. If the paper is 67% copied and 33% original, do we reject or do we accept? We reject, because we only accept papers that are 90% original. The 10% maybe similarity index is 10%, but correctly cited. Now, here's an example of a plagiarized content. The one on the right side is actually the original. Sorry, the one on the right side is the original from the web, and the one on the left side was actually the one submitted to our journal. And then when I was able to check, it's actually 100% plagiarized. So did we reject? Yes, we rejected. And then the author came back to us saying that the original text was actually his, but it was never mentioned in the references. So this is actually a case of self-plagiarism. So we still rejected the paper. Now, this is very important. Just like what Dr. Paul mentioned earlier, the gap is really important when you want to publish a study or a research. The gap is actually something that previous researchers were not able to answer, or were not able to provide solutions or answers in their previous researches. And the gap is actually a motivation for us researchers to think of possible problems that we can study now and have it written and presented so that others may know that, wow, so this is actually the gap from the previous research, and this researcher is now giving a point or a solution to these gaps. Okay, so where can we actually find gaps in previous researches? You check on their literature, you check on their scope and limitations. It is where you can find the gap of the research. Now, a strong research also needs a strong literature review. So read and read and read researches connected to your current research, because I got this from Twitter. Research is spending 6 hours reading 35 papers so you can write one sentence containing two references. This is actually true. If you're too lazy to read, I am so sorry. You might not be able to build a very good review of literature. Now, since the time is running out, it's also very important for you to have a catchy title. When you say catchy title, it doesn't need to be very long and it doesn't need to be very short. And now the current trend is not to put the methodology in the title. For example, the discourse analysis of this something something. No need to put their discourse analysis. Yes. No need to put in the title the methodology used or maybe the design of the study. So thank you very much. I think our time is already up. It's 7:15. And
Thank you.
we're ready for questions.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. At this time, we did have a question. What could a person who submitted a paper for publication expect in terms of turnaround time to be informed about whether their paper has been accepted or rejected?
On.
Yeah. Would you like to answer that, Dr. Paul? Sorry.
Oh no, you can. You're the managing director.
Yes.
I'm the executive. I just listen.
Yes. I'm so sorry, but maybe my answer is harsh. The turnaround time is actually fast if the paper is not good. Yes, because it can be rejected in as fast as less than an hour. But once it is accepted, the record holder in our publication is that this researcher actually was actually had like 4 years of revisions.
Wow.
That's a record holder. 4 years of revision, but the fastest revision was 2 months revision.
2 months.
Yes.
That's very helpful. We have another question. Do I have to be a registered member of your organization for my writings to be accepted for publication?
No. Anybody, anywhere can submit anytime through the submission link on the 5 journals. Tesselasia is not a membership site per se, it's just the parent of the journals, a legal entity. So the journals, you can go to the journals, whichever one you choose, click the submit link, read the submission guidelines, complete the submission guidelines, check the boxes, and then send your paper through. You receive an automated response saying, yes, it's been received. Now, if you don't get an automated response, there's been a glitch in the system. So somehow there are emails you can contact us. So some authors write back and saying, we haven't heard from a year. It's been a year, and then we go back and say, well, sorry, we never got the paper. So there should be a response. I mean, even at the busiest times, you'll get the automated response. And generally speaking, within 1 to 2 weeks, the system is very complex. The papers go through the automated system to the chief editor of the journal that's appropriate. And that chief editor, usually within 5 days, will say, this is worthy of a full review, or it's not up to scratch. If it's not up to scratch, he'll respond, the chief editor responds within a week or 10 days saying, good effort, but it's not going to make the cut, but I suggest you do ABC. Or he'll write to the associate editors and say, this paper's made it through the preliminary findings, please give it to a team. And that team communicates with the author. So if you hear silence for more than 2 or 3 weeks, something's gone wrong.
But I like how you outlined the options for that, and it's helpful to know the process. Someone has asked if you could share the link for the journal.
Mon, are you able to, we have a special link for your conference, for this UAB conference. With
yes.
There's actually three different routes for publishing. We have our standard free route, and there are 2 commercial routes, so people can choose which one they want. And if Mon can somehow get that link, and maybe the conference can supply all of the audience and participants with that link, you're welcome to contact us.
Okay, excellent.
Any luck, Mon, or not yet?
I think, Dr. Paul, you can copy from your email, because I'm sharing my screen right now. If I'll do something on my screen, it can be seen by everyone. Sorry.
I think I'd need my 3-year-old to do that. He's a bit more. What we'll do during the course of the conference, I'll send the link to Mary, or whoever's in charge there, and you can supply it from the conference to your participants.
Excellent, excellent.